Nutrition is the basis of fitness, it's the basis of mental health, it's the basis of physical strength.
When you eat bad and you eat a bunch of junk food and drink a lot of soda and eat a lot of sugar and things like that, it makes you feel bad. So when you feel bad physically, you feel bad mentally. So it makes you lazy. It makes you not want to do things. It makes you not want to go out. It can also lead to depression. It affects how you respond to people. It affects the way you think. It affects your sleep patterns. It affects what you do in your daily life. So it's really important to make sure that you eat properly and eat the foods that benefit you.
So you can think of what we eat as the building blocks of our body, because it's true. We can only use what we eat to build who we are. So we become what we eat. When it comes to the mind, our brains are very sensitive to what we eat. Inflammation is this big umbrella term that covers all of these responses that our body has to feeling attacked. Inflammation looks different in every part of the body, but in the brain, it can cause a lot of really unexpected effects. Migraines and maybe moodiness and sleepiness. But in the long term, if our brains are sick and we don't take care of it and help reduce the inflammation in our brain, then it can actually contribute to the decline of our mental health. When we eat things that are nutrient dense, like fruits and vegetables, then it contributes to the health of our bodies. When we eat things that are inflammatory or that our bodies recognize as toxins, such as a lot of the food additives, hydrogenated oils, a lot of the Franken foods that we see in the processed foods that are sold today, those things contribute to inflammation in the body and are seen as toxic by our body, and our body really fights to get rid of the effects of those toxins in our body.
My mom, she had the Three Musketeers: diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, and she radically changed her diet from what we all normally eat to a plant-based diet. She became really, really mindful and made sure that she didn't have any meat or any dairy or any animal products in her diet, and she actually turned her numbers around to be able to come off a lot of her medication and lowered her A1C, which is the way that they measure whether or not you're diabetic or not, down to almost pre-diabetes levels. She got it down so far that the medical group where her doctor practiced wanted to do a story about her in their newsletter. My husband, who also had some real major issues just from eating the way that we all eat, and he was able to turn his kidney injury around to what a normal man his age would be, just from being mindful about the foods that he was taking in and being mindful about making sure that there was nothing that was going to harm his kidneys or increase his diabetes. So the foods if you're mindful about the foods that you're eating, you can turn your entire health around for the better.
I used to be really sick, and I don't think I realized how much the foods I was eating were affecting my life. I took these really commonly irritating ingredients out of my diet for a certain amount of time. And then when I noticed that certain things, certain symptoms that were bothering me had disappeared, I started to reintroduce things back into my diet, one ingredient at a time. And between each ingredient, I would wait to see how my body reacted to that ingredient. In my experience, I've seen that when people know exactly how certain foods affect their bioindividuality, they feel empowered to change their diet, to change what they're eating, because they know they would rather live in the body that isn't affected by those foods than continue to live with the side effects of continuing to have those things in their diet. I was so impacted by the changes in my life that came from changing my diet that I decided that I wanted to go into nutrition as a profession so that I could help as many people as possible feel empowered to change their own diet.
I think it's really difficult for people to change their eating habits because food is really more complicated than just being food. It's not just, a source of energy or fuel. There's a lot of layers to it. Food can be entertainment, it can be comfort, it can be community, it can be culture. So when you're trying to change your eating habits without taking a look at these other aspects and your relationship with food, it's going to be really, really hard to sustain. And I also think there's a lot of misinformation about what healthy eating should look like. We hear a lot about vegan diets, keto diets, extreme eating plans like that, and we think we have to do something like that. So we just go all in on a particular type of diet, and we're just one cheat meal away from just throwing in the towel and going back to the drawing board. So it really makes a lot more sense when you create gradual, slow changes instead of having an all or nothing mindset. That really makes it a lot harder to make changes but also sustain them. Keep in mind that changing your eating habits may require you to go a little bit outside of your comfort zone, to do a little bit of exploration. So you have to mentally prepare for the fact that it's not going to be a simple process. It's not just like flipping a switch and you're good to go. I think the best thing that you can do is to just keep an open mind and really keep a spirit of adventure.
In a forest with no paths, the more you walk the same trail over and over again, the more worn the path becomes. And that's how it is in our brains. When we try something new, it's like trying to get through a forest that's really bushy and full of brambles and thorns and leaves. It's like trying to get from one side of the forest to another, and the whole forest is like that. It's really difficult. And so our brain doesn't like that. It's not safe, it's not efficient. And so what happens is our brain throws a tantrum. So the way that this tantrum manifests is a lot of times voices telling you that you can't do it in your head, like you're not good enough or this is stupid, a lot of voices of criticism. Or sometimes you'll feel it as resistance, right? Like, I can't do this, like I don't know how to do this. Most of the time, when our brain throws a tantrum, we give in. And that's because our brain is trying to protect us. Our brain is trying to make sure that we don't use too much energy going down a path that's never been walked before, that's never been, explored. That's scary for a brain. But when we change, when we do something over and over again, it becomes easier and easier. So our goal when we're changing our diet is to do something like cooking a meal enough times that our brain stops telling us, this is scary, this is not good, this is not right, we shouldn't be doing this. Telling our brain that, yes, we can do this. And then our brain starts to see patterns. It starts to feel easier. We kind of get in the groove. When we do something enough, we start to get into the state of flow. So the most wealthy, the most popular, the most well-known corporations that sell food hire these people called flavor scientists. And the specific goal of a flavor scientist is to make food so addicting and appealing that people will buy it over and over and over again. And that is meant so that these companies will make profit selling their processed foods. They add flavor that is hyper stimulating to the brain. It is a flavor that your brain will never experience in nature. Salt, sugar, and umami. So they make something super salty, super sweet, or in the case of MSG, super umami. In nature, something that's hyper flavorful means that it's full of nutrients. If something is super sweet, it means it's full of glucose. It might be an apple or a pear or an orange. If something is super salty, it is full of minerals. And the more processed food you eat, the more normal it seems for food to have those flavors. Because remember I said, the more often that our brain does something, the more that path is worn in our brain. It starts to seem normal. And so when we try to change what we're eating, we're going up against these two big problems. One is that changing what we're eating requires learning new skills, trying new things. The second thing, natural food, could never hope to reach the level of stimulation that the flavor scientists have put in processed food. When our brain eats those new foods, they taste bland, they taste boring, they taste, uninteresting, they might even taste bad. So when we go out to change our diet, when we set out to change our diet, it's important to know what obstacles are in front of us. It's important to know that it will be difficult because you're teaching your brain something new, and your brain doesn't really like to learn new things.
It's difficult to change your eating habits when you don't have a direct connection to the food that you are eating.
When I started Feed Our Soul, I was really just focused on changing my diet and also helping others change their diet as well. But then it grew to such a deeper understanding of not only myself, but of the world and of the environment around me. And I believe that it's important to understand that your environment is a key factor in your health. And so which is why food deserts and food insecurity is such a crisis, because it's literally dictating your food environment. And so when Feed Our Soul birthed, it was really because I was thinking, okay, how do I change my immediate environment so that I can access fresh vegetables and fresh fruit, because I am always on a budget and I am looking for a way to sustainably, have a healthy lifestyle. And the best way to do that is to grow my own food. I still am wrapping my head around, how food is costing so much when the earth is free and the soil around us is free. And so all it really is just learning, right? It's just learning how to take care of a plant and create an environment that's efficient enough for it to then produce more fruit. Well, here are 3 simple steps that you can start today in order to change your diet. Step 1 is to cook your own food. That means when you go to the grocery store, first go to the grocery store and cook your own food and create your own diet and meal plan. Right? That doesn't mean it has to be strict. It doesn't mean it has to be perfect, but just having a plan for the week of what you're going to eat really helps with portion control. It also helps with figuring out what you're going to buy. We rely so much on ordering out all the time. We don't know how much salt or sugar or is going into outside products. But if you control your environment and control your kitchen and control your intake by cooking your own food, using fresh herbs, and making it so that you know exactly what's going into your food, that is one way how you can absolutely control your diet. The second step I would probably say is to drink more water. If you drink more water, then that not only helps start your digestive system, it helps flush your system, and it constantly is having your system work through and push that food down and out of your body. Food, it comes in, but it also has to come out, and you have to push out all those things. And so it might seem a little gross, but you should be having bowel movements multiple times a day. Whether you're going to the bathroom or going to the restroom, that is really how you know your body is working. So if you drink more water, lots and lots of water, then that will kind of help facilitate that process so that you know that your food is being processed fully to its fullest effect. It's less time for food to be translated into fat, and it also empties out your body so that you can then eat more food. The third thing that I would say for you is to start your day with fruit. We, as Americans, we start our day with like eggs and bacon and pancakes and hash browns. It's very, very carb heavy. But if you go outside to the Caribbean culture, if you look at the African culture, if you look at the Hispanic culture, they really start their day off, with fresh fruit. So I would say if you invest in a really great blender, or invest in either a really good NutriBullet, and then start making smoothies. Or you can start making fresh pressed juices if you want to, take that next step. But if you or even just eating fresh fruit whole. But starting your day off with fruit gives your body that sugar rush that it needs in order for your brain to wake up in the morning. And it also, is delicious.
First and foremost, slow down. Actually take your time with your meal. Breathe, smell, taste, chew, savor, and enjoy your food, because being in a relaxed state activates the biochemistry required for proper digestion and nutrient assimilation. Whereas eating too fast or eating while multitasking can create stress chemistry in the body, which can impair digestion and lead to unwanted health issues. Next, upgrade to higher quality, unprocessed versions of foods that you already love. Lastly, make a list of foods that you enjoy on one hand, make a list of foods that you consider to be healthy for your body on the other hand, compare the two lists, notice any overlaps, and eat more of those foods.
For anyone that's looking to change their diet, I would say start by cutting out processed food, or at least cutting down on it. Start to take a look at the labels of your favorite packaged foods and those ingredients that you don't really recognize, you can't pronounce. Yeah, they're not the best for you. And I'm not saying you have to get rid of all packaged or processed foods, but start to look out for cleaner alternatives that don't have things like highly processed oils and preservatives and artificial flavors and other chemical additives that really are not good for us. And the natural next step is to put on your apron and get into the kitchen, because when you're cooking your own food and your own meals, you can really control exactly what's going in it. And my last tip is to incorporate more plant foods. I'm not saying that you have to go full on vegan or anything like that, but fruits and vegetables and other whole foods like grains, nuts, seeds, beans, things like that have so many vitamins and minerals, and we literally need those to survive. So start slow, adding 1 or 2 new things here and there. Keep an open mind, experiment. Oh, and one more thing. Follow people on social media who are eating the way that you want to be eating. see what they're doing, see what recipes they're making, gain inspiration from them.
A step that you could take today would be an if-then plan. So, you know that your plan in the long run is to change your diet. But today, I want you to think about all of the obstacles that could come your way. And I want you to make a plan of what you will do when those obstacles come up. These types of plans are really helping you to think through things that really will happen in the real world. So if I'm trying to change my diet and I want to drink less beer, right? If my coworkers invite me to happy hour, then I will. And the idea is that you prepare yourself for these things that are part of everyday life. So maybe I'll say, then I will go out with them and I'll order a Shirley Temple. Or I'll order sparkling water. Or maybe if I don't feel like I'm ready for that, I'll say, if my coworker invites me to happy hour, then I'll say, thanks for the invite, but I don't think I'm going to be able to make it this month. Another step you can take today when you're trying to change your diet is to find a team. Reach out to someone. Maybe it's your sister, maybe it's your mom. Anyone who will cheer you on, anyone who you can call when things get tough. Start celebrating small wins. So maybe today you had 3 vegetables, 3 different types of vegetables at 3 different meals. So what if the rest of your plate maybe didn't look so good? You still ate those foods and your body is still able to use the nutrients from those foods to help you. So that's a win. That's a celebration. That's an act of rebellion. Anything that you do that is trying to change your diet should be celebrated. So if there's something that you're really trying not to eat, except maybe on special occasions, then don't buy it at the grocery store. Don't bring it into your house. Enjoy it on special occasions, but keep it special. Keep it set apart. Don't keep things in your house that you don't want to eat.
Healthy food is a direct connection to our mental health. So if we eat healthy, we feel healthy, we are more energized, and it keeps us alive longer.
Mental health is our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. Our mental health affects how we think, how we feel, how we behave. It helps us determine how we handle stress, how we relate to others, the choices that we make. Our mental health is important at every stage of our life. From the time that we're a young child to a toddler, adolescent, young adult, and even as an elder. When we experience positive and healthy mental health, this allows us to realize our fullest potential. It allows us to experience a healthy relationship to ourselves and to others. It helps us navigate often stressful situations throughout our life. And it can even really uplift us to make meaningful contributions to our communities.
Mental and psychological well-being means community well-being. It means having access to supports we need when we need them, and then showing up for others when and however we can. It means waking up to the fact that we are interdependently connected and inextricably bound to one another and to the planet. And in my opinion, conversations that make these connections explicit are the most important conversations we can be having right now.
We all have mental health, and that, like everything else, just like our physical health, just like the world around us, our mental health can go through changes. stress, challenges with relationships, community safety, food security, all of that impacts how our mental and emotional well-being kind of present itself.
That it is rather common for mothers who are pregnant to experience prenatal mood disorders as well as postpartum mood disorders. You might be wondering, what does that even mean? So these disorders are related to mood and anxiety that can happen during pregnancy or up to 1 year postpartum. What are some signs to look for if you or someone, a mother that you know, is showing any of these signs? I invite you to look at sadness, anxiety, worry about being a good enough parent, trouble sleeping, eating, difficulties concentrating and making decisions, experiencing a lot of stress related to finances, relationships, and life transitions. And so professionals like myself exist as part of the Partnerships for Families program and really supporting this particular population, recognizing that becoming pregnant, welcoming a new child, it's a significant life transition that inevitably can bring significant stress into one's life as a woman, as a father, as a new family dynamic. And so know that these challenges do exist and that support is available.
They're faced with both economic, social, and ancestral challenges without the roots of knowing who they are.
Traditionally, in the Black, Brown, and just POC communities, there is a large stigma around mental health. That is a combination of society, different religious and political views, and it's just very challenging for a lot of people to talk about. One of the other things that makes accessing mental health more challenging for people of color is that our insurance, which is how a lot of people access the care, is tied to our employment. So that can be very challenging for individuals who do not have insurance because they are kept out of accessing this kind of service. A lot of individuals who might want to see someone might not have the finances or the insurance or the ability to actually access the care, or might not even know where the care is in the first place, which is a big challenge as well.
I've realized that there are 4 main challenges that impact BIPOC communities from accessing mental health services. One of these reasons I believe to be cultural implications. Mental health is often not a topic, perhaps, addressed in families. It is believed that seeking mental health support is only for those who are quote-unquote crazy. We may have within our families or our surroundings a very limited understanding of what mental health even means, what does it look like, right? And when is the time to actually seek support? Another notion that comes to mind is there being a long history of mistrust with social services, social service providers, sometimes in connection to past history or experiences, whether personal or from someone close to you, who has come across roads with the Department of Children and Families. And I can imagine that being a barrier to even considering seeking support when all you've known are of these ruptures, these moments of distrust with social service providers. A third notion is just limited awareness of available programs out in the community. I say this particularly among immigrant communities who may be unable to access information in their primary languages, not only in Spanish or the main second languages that we think of, but even thinking about indigenous communities, very limited access to information in their native languages. And fourth, challenges simply accessing mental health supports, whether that means having the transportation to reach a community mental health clinic. Currently with COVID-19, accessing telehealth mental health services, sometimes just having limited access to the internet can present a significant challenge.
We do not take into account as mental health professionals, and something that can be overlooked is how our experience and how our environments play a role in our mental health. So I say that to say that there's a lot of people who are experiencing trauma and having trauma responses in our communities, and they're not being cared for in the way that is conducive to them getting well. But one thing that I'd like to see happen more often is focusing on the day-to-day stressors that many people in the Black and Brown communities do experience. When you're going into different places, like maybe you don't feel affirmed where you work, or like when you're talking to people, but that does play an impact on your emotional well-being, especially if you identify as a person of color.
Our society promotes a culture of individualism, competition, dominance, extraction, consumerism, and social isolation that serves to keep us sick and accelerates our mortality, especially for those in marginalized and oppressed groups. Even our mental health care system fails us when it emphasizes individual pathologies over systemic contexts, or promotes self-care over community care, and symptom suppression instead of integrative healing, and when it cherry picks who has access to services and who doesn't. Even we psychotherapists can perpetuate harm when we fail to acknowledge the dynamics of power and privilege that are in the room, and when we're not actively working to dismantle those structures.
The hustle culture that we have in our society is definitely having a negative impact on our mental health. We are just so obsessed with being productive and constantly working, always pushing ourselves to the limit and striving for success no matter the cost. Work-life balance, unfortunately, just isn't something that is valued in our society, and the effects of that are detrimental. We are seeing so many more people suffering from chronic stress and burnout, and rates of depression and anxiety are also on the rise. And just look at the US compared to other countries. In Europe, workers are working fewer days a year, and they're getting twice the number of paid vacation days as we are getting here. And on top of that, we are less likely to use those vacation days that we do get. And social media definitely isn't helping. We have a direct view of all the amazing things that other people are doing, and we end up putting so much more pressure on ourselves to do more, whether that's work more, achieve more, just to be better in some way. It really just becomes a vicious cycle, and eventually you're going to reach your breaking point.
During pregnancy, there are significant stressors that mothers, fathers, caregivers involved may experience that may impact the early attachment, bond, connection, and relationship to baby. Some of these are experiencing significant overwhelm due to the amount of work in the home, outside of the home, feeling overwhelmed by the huge expectations around managing household chores. Another common stressor is experiencing significant financial stress, limited, even a lack of social supports from nuclear family, extended family. Based on just my experience as a clinical social worker, I believe that one of society's roles is to really provide our mothers, our young children, families the supports that are needed to decrease as many of these stressors as possible in order to set up our families for success.
Gardening can truly help your mental health. One of the things that it can help with is acceptance. That's because sometimes things in the garden just happen and you have no control over it. And it teaches you to just let things be, not to worry about it, because sometimes it'll fix itself. So gardening can really help you understand what it's like to just be able to just relax and let things happen. It can also help you feel rewarded, because when you plant something from a little seed and watch it grow into a big plant that you can pick from and eat from, it really makes you feel accomplished. It makes you feel like you did something, and it will make you feel happier to know that you grew this plant yourself with your very own hands into something that can benefit you and other people. So sometimes gardening can help you help other people, and sometimes helping other people makes you feel good.
When gardening actually has been found to reduce stress, it has a ability to kind of pull people in and have people focus more on what they're doing and the task at hand instead of the external factors going on in their lives. So that's one of the beautiful things about gardening. And it can also make you really, really relaxed and reduce that stress. So I do definitely suggest, gardening, even if it's something like putting a plant in the window. Plants really do have a big impact on our emotional well-being.
Get more into your body, whether it's activity or relaxation or pleasure or play. Our bodies are actually wiser than many of us are conditioned to remember. And in a culture that emphasizes reason and intellect over cycles and intuition, getting more in tune with the body can be a revolutionary act. Also, nurture your relationships, increase your support network, connect vulnerably with people you care about and trust. Love on each other, laugh a lot, do what delights you, and have fun. Lastly, know your values. Get crystal clear and even let your anger inform you about what is precious enough to you that you feel activated to speak up and stand up for it. Name the value, be specific, and then find ways to connect and organize with others who share those values.
At Nurture Nature, one of our favorite suggestions is to get outside. Whether that means going to your front lawn, your closest alley, finding a sidewalk, a parking lot. The more creative you get, the more fun you'll have. It's all about getting outside. How does spending time outside help us? For one, it helps us focus on the here and the now. It reminds us to take a deep breath, exhale. It reminds us to put our feet on the ground, take a moment to pause, reconnect to ourselves, look around. So that's one of them. And of course, others are connecting with other people that you enjoy connecting with. Becoming physically active, breaking a sweat, just getting those endorphins going. Helping others, it's always fulfilling, can bring a lot of joy into your life. Drinking more water, believe it or not, it's very energizing, very life-giving. Getting more of that sleep. Have you noticed that when you take more time to sleep, you feel more energized? Making healthier nutritional choices, working on developing healthy coping strategies and skills. And of course, one of my favorite ones of what you can do to care for your mental health today is if you're needing additional support and help, reach out, get professional support. We're here for you.
There are so many benefits to having plants in your home. The first one is that they are mood enhancers. They truly make you happy. The second thing is that they are stress relievers and anxiety busters. How? Well, when you're caring for your plants, it helps to lower your blood cholesterol and the cortisol, which reduces stress and anxiety. The third thing is that they help you become mindful and intentional, something that we don't always get an opportunity to do because we're always going at the speed of light. So when you're caring for your plants, you calm down and slow down, which provides an opportunity to be more mindful and intentional. The fourth thing is that they help us to become grounded to who we are, where we're from, and connect with our ancestors. And the final thing is that they are an act of resistance to the oppressive structures that say that Black people, Indigenous people, people of color, are not entitled to domesticity in their homes, when in fact, we are the very ones who coined and were the ones who were caring for homes and also caring for the land. So yes, it is an act of resistance.
So the benefits of gardening are endless. Of course, you're making your own food. You don't have to go anywhere for that. You don't have to ask anyone what you can eat. There's liberty and choice. There's freedom and power. In fact, there's economics. And then there's culture as well. Because based on what you're getting, it comes from somewhere in the world, and there's a history behind that. So gardening really has a number of mental health benefits in expanding your mind and allowing you to learn while comforting you and giving you reassurance of certain processes and certain experiences you're yet to have. It also inevitably connects your community to you because people know what you're doing and want to be part of that. They are naturally part of nature too and have a connection with you. So there are endless benefits to gardening, and I hope that more people get into it for their mental health's sake.
I remember when the first time I grew cauliflower, and the heads started to come up and they started to mature, and I noticed that it was starting to take on these subtle pastel hues of lavender and like a pale green. It was beautiful. It looked like a flower, but I had never seen it before. And so my supermarket brain said, pretty, but something's wrong with it. It should be white. And so as I started to research it, I learned that cauliflower actually is not white when it's ripe, when it has the antioxidants in it and it has all of the vitamins and minerals that you really want. The supermarkets have the growers pick it early, and so that's why we have this white cauliflower rather than the beautiful shades and colors that it actually comes in. And so that began the journey of me realizing that we actually don't know what our food looks like. It's not all the same pepper size or the same tomato size. Nature's not like that. It comes in all different shapes and sizes. And as you start to learn about your food and then really wanting to make sure that it has the right environment, now you have to become interested in the medium that it grows in. And it's not dirt, it's soil, it's Mother Earth, and it has its own ecosystem all of its own. And so you have to learn about that. And you see what I mean? Like, you start to grow your own food and it takes you on this journey of life where you learn so much about all of the different ecosystems, and you have to come out healthier on the other side of that.
There are so many different benefits to gardening, and one of those benefits is just knowing exactly where your food comes from. Things in stores can be labeled as organic, but they're not organic the way we think they are. When you garden, you can do whatever you want in your garden. And I know for me, I don't use any pesticides or anything that's harmful to myself or my family. I make sure that everything I use is safe for us to consume and safe for the environment as well. Another benefit to gardening is having fresh food. There is nothing like going out in the garden and picking fresh fruit and veggies for you to cook for that day. And it tastes so much better than the stuff that you get in stores because, well, that stuff kind of sits for a while before it even gets to your local grocery store, and then you go and pick it and you don't really cook it right away. You sit it on the counter, you put it in the refrigerator, and then when you're ready to make it, you use it. Well, veggies from your garden will last a lot longer because they're fresher.
I feel life.
When I'm around my plants or interacting with my plants, I always have a sense of peacefulness, a sense of calmness. I feel accomplished. I feel excited. I am always looking for ways that I can learn more on how to be a better plant parent. So it's really gratifying when I'm around them because I know that I'm going to encounter something really exciting, or I'm going to encounter something that's going to be really educational that piques my curiosity. So it's a pretty cool experience hanging around my plants.
Gardening can make you feel so many different sensations. And what I mean by that is just being out in nature, feeling the breeze in your hair or on your skin. And just becoming one with nature is something that I think is really important. It makes you happier. It makes you appreciate the little things that happen that you probably don't know is going on if you're just inside the house. Sometimes it's great to just get out in the garden and sometimes just sit and watch things happen. It's a great feeling and it'll make your mood just enhance immensely. And it's really important to just get outside and just be in that moment.
So there's a time when you take your shoes off and you put your feet straight in the dirt and you suddenly feel connected to the universe. That's one sensation I feel. There's wind, there's sun, water. There are all these elements working together in different ways at different times. Different insects, different plants, birds, and smells all combine to create your one unique experience during that one time of day for that one day of the season.
I'm an avid meditator. I enjoy quieting my mind and quieting my spirit, and that's what gardening does for me. You actually don't feel any sensations. You literally turn everything off. You're not thinking about anything, and you're just in the moment, and you realize that there's no thoughts, there's no self-talk, there's no talk from other people, there's no noise. It's just you and the soil and the plants and nature. And that's a beautiful thing.
Having plants in our home has been such a wonderful impact on not only my husband and I relationship, but also on the people who visit us. When people visit us, they're amazed at how many plants we have, and their next question is, how in the world do you take care of them? So it piques their curiosity in how you care for plants. And because of their curiosity, they sometimes go away with the idea that, guess what? I think it's time to add some green plants and some life into our home. The other thing is it's really enhanced our relationship as husband and wife. My husband grew up with plants in the home. I did not grow up with plants in the home. My mother did have a garden, but that wasn't something that we really shared with her. However, we ate the wonderful food from her garden, but we didn't get out and till the yard with her. That just was her thing. So having plants in the home now has drawn us closer together because he's actually the person who encouraged me to bring more plants in my home when I was dating him. And now that we have our home is an urban jungle. The other thing that's been very impactful is that our environment is so much more pure. When we first moved into our home, it had so many toxins from all the building materials that were used to build our home. I was very, very sick for months. I had to wear a mask everywhere I went because I couldn't handle it. When we put more plants in our home, it purified the air. It took those toxins out of the air. And I have not had any more problems with those issues with my respiratory system since then. So physically, emotionally, and from an environmental yes, it has been a wonderful, wonderful impact in our home.
Gardening has been like therapy for the therapist. It's one of the most active and embodied meditations I've ever experienced. I consider it a daily practice in mutual support and nourishment, in recognizing and meeting needs, and in knowing when to pause and when to take action.
Yeah, gardening's had a great impact on our household. It's something for Triana to do, something for her to play with, something for her to grow and care for. It's also entertaining for me as an entrepreneur. I create businesses pretty quickly, and I find opportunities in the garden to create more value outside the garden. It's an opportunity too for people who want to learn and become independent on their own. So I love connecting them and learning through my own experiences. For my wife, it's been great too. She's found more ingredients that she loves to play with in the kitchen, and she's very curious culturally, and so she's found a lot of opportunity to play with that, and really just enjoy food again, to slow down, feel like we're creating, inhabiting, and owning what we put into our own bodies.
I think it's because we have a disconnect with being with Mother Earth and connecting with our roots because of modernization, which translates to the convenience factor. Let me explain. The convenience factor is the ability to be able to go to any store pretty much and pick up fruit and vegetables. You can even pick up an apple or a banana at a local gas station. Also, if you're looking for plants, you can go to a retail store and pick up a faux plant in lieu of picking up a living plant that you have to care for. It's not to say that it's not something that we want to do. It's simply to say that modernization has diminished the value and importance and impact that being with Mother Earth originally had in our lives. And now seeing so many people embracing it again, I think we have a better chance of more people reconnecting.
Color in gardening is important. And what I mean by color is people who look like me. Light, dark, medium brown. The point is that we don't see enough people of color in the gardening and farming industry. When it comes to Black people in gardening, a lot of us just don't have the resources, we don't have the knowledge or anything to help us understand that this is something that we are very capable of doing. And I think it's really important that we have more people, more Black people, making videos and posting on social media and showing that this is something that we can do. We've been doing this from the beginning of time, and I think it's time that a lot more of us get into it. So just reach out to local gardeners, nurseries, to get some resources on gardening in your community.
It is about economics, but it's also about tradition. We've been scared away traditionally from agricultural work because a lot of it was painful for us. A lot of it was not fun, not beneficial to us. We did not get patents and inventions in our names, nor did we even retain the land that we worked on for centuries. So in a sense, a lot of us don't want to do agriculture. Yet this is the new opportunity because it's been so heavily consolidated and because there are so few of us already in the field right now. It means that the opportunity and the pendulum is swinging back the other direction. There's too much of a need for food that's high quality for this to not be valuable to us to get into right now. There's too much of an opportunity of land and people realizing their food is garbage. Honestly, your food is garbage, so people realize that, and they're desperate to find any other solution. I'm encouraged by how people of color in the past have, in a sense, saved various cultures by offering food as services. Those who first arrived at North America couldn't survive through the winters without those indigenous folks that were here, similar to those earlier in Europe who couldn't get out and get into the Renaissance period without those who supported them in periods of agriculture and scientific development. So a lot of that was people of color, and here we are again with another cycle of society falling upon its knees, asking for help in a sense, and we know what we need to do. Our ancestors have programmed us with what is possible, and the economics and the timing of it all have lined up to where we have support both on the federal, state, city, district, nonprofit, corporate levels, and a fair amount of opportunity to make it happen. Let's get together and do it.
Is is good for the soul and good for the spirit, and for the BIPOC community, soul is our strength.
So many of our neighborhoods are filled with things that make us unhealthy. The fast food and the supermarkets that don't have a variety of fruits and vegetables and all of the things that contribute to a lifestyle that's not healthy. So much of our culture is wrapped up in gathering and celebration around food. Imagine if we returned to what really is kind of in our DNA. Our ancestors, our relatives came up as daughters and sons of the soil, and if we could return to that without the negative connotation that comes with it and really learn how to create our own food, it's almost revolutionary if you think about it, and teach our children how we would be able to defeat all of the lifestyle diseases that have plagued our communities and plagued our mortality rates, and allowed us to be healthy and to celebrate and really have that joy around food that's healthy and that's helping us grow children that are healthy. And it's an act of resistance against the system that's set up to make us unhealthy.
So you don't need a green thumb. Have a curious thumb instead. Learn about the relationships that exist between and among soil and plants and roots and microbes and sunlight and water and air and weeds and insects. Don't decide that something is a problem before you've considered its contexts, because gardening is as much about the nurturing and expansion of our own hearts and minds and communities as it is about the cultivation and growth of plants in yards and patios.
I don't believe in the green thumb myth. I think that everyone who wants to nurture a plant can certainly do so. Yeah, there's a learning curve, and there will be a few plant casualties that go off to plant heaven, but that's okay, because we all have to lose a plant here or there so that we can learn what it is that we need to do. Do we need to water less, or do we need to water more? Do we need to learn the difference between bright indirect light and direct light? There's so many things that go into caring for a plant, but being a green thumb is not one of them. Being willing to learn what it takes to care for a plant is what is going to make you a successful plant parent.
If you don't have a green thumb, I dare you to throw some seed into soil and water it for 10 days and see how you feel.